got a bunch of white kids, play babies. We lead the nation in child pedophilia and molestation of children. Hey man, we need that Epstein list out. They say the president is on that list. He ain't doing that to the people. He was a talking point who spread a lot of misinformation, almost the borderline of lying. The statistic that he was using was false. Black people don't commit 50% of the murders in this country. We commit 50% of black murders, which is a small fraction compared to the Mexican, the white, the immigrants. So he's challenging children. I'm challenging adults. So we are not the same. He wasn't putting his life on the line because he was talking just about black people. He never talked about nobody else as if black people are America's problem. So that's my problem with that shit. Hell, he ain't no me. I stand up to the gangbangers, the killers. I pick on the bullies of the race. He pick on the weakest of the race. The small, undeveloped brains of our children on the college level, on the entry college level. I want to let you know the problem with people saying. Yo, what is going on, Florida State family, Seminole Nation, in the 863 tribe? It's your boy POLK, a.k.a. A-Lo, a.k.a. the goddamn truth. I went MIA for about a week, but it's okay. Back for this Virginia game on Friday. This is the game that I kind of had circled, right? This is the game that you would kind of find out, regardless with the Bama game, and we ended up winning that game, obviously, but regardless of that game, the Virginia game was always the game that would kind of say, okay, it's a game before Miami, you play that game, how you come out in that game, the focus and all of that in that game kind of can shape the rest of your season. Well, here we are. Interesting
Over underline, I think it's 6.5 if I'm not mistaken. Maybe it went up to 7.5. It's somewhere around there. On the road Friday night against the Virginia team that I think has some offensive capabilities. Don't quite think they're that good defensively, but they got some offensive stuff. And uh, depending on, what the defense comes out with the attitude. One thing I'll say about this last game, personally, I didn't feel like the Kent State game was worth anything. Just needed to take a week. Um, but the one thing I will take out of the Kent State game, not that I'm taking and putting a bunch of merit into it. Simply, I did not think the defense started that game off very focused in the Kent State game, and it kind of showed. We had a bust play in the back end that ended up in a touchdown for Kent State. Now that's a one play thing, right? That's a small, minute thing that I'm not about to get here or get on here, so to speak, and bash or take that and try to say the defense isn't what we thought. Well, we'll see. We'll see what the defense is. I expect them to come out with a bunch of intensity and focus against Virginia. But Virginia's going to be an interesting game. Could be a tricky game. Again, we'll do a score prediction. But the offense is at an all-time high, regardless of the opponent. What the offense is doing is incredible. And I guess before we continue to cook, and we'll going over a little bit of the Kent State stuff, and then we'll talk about a little bit of Virginia stuff, and call it a night. Let's do a quick roll call, man. Hit the like button, subscribe, share, do all the good things that y'all supposed to do for your boy. Get in that comment section. I'll give y'all a minute to get in the comments, and we'll do a quick roll call, and then we'll continue the conversation. I think it's a solid conversation here to be had tonight, as I believe number 8 Florida State Seminoles go into Virginia, which is a rivalry game, by the way. I know, the modern day football fan doesn't know that, right? Like, the modern day FSU fan doesn't know about Virginia and Florida State. Virginia is the legit first ACC rival of the Seminoles. I've said this a million times, and we'll continue to say it. Clemson is a manufactured rivalry by the media because of Bowden's son. Virginia is the ACC rival. They play for a trophy, the Jefferson Epps Trophy. Like, it's a trophy game. That was FSU's rival as far as the ACC was concerned. That was the ACC, Florida State's ACC rival. Yeah, let me get in here and let me get to these comments, and then again we'll pick up where we left off. I got Joe Johnson in the building, Brandy Franklin, Demon, Robert Garcia Briley, Jeff, Mile High, Project Dynasty, Vontae, Noel Sage, Randy, Antoine's in the building, Mighty Knowles in the building, Antonio Jenkins, many blessings to you as well. Appreciate that. BG Games, Kendrick D. Thompson, Marcus 1219, KCS in the building. Appreciate that. And yeah, as y'all continue to come in, y'all already know what to do. Hit a like, but get in that comment section. Let me know you're in here kicking it with your boy. So yeah, like I was saying, as far as the Kent State game went, the offense has been incredible, man. It's the beautiful thing about the last two games. And granted, right, you haven't played anybody. I'm not going to sit here and pretend Kent State is good. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that East Texas A&M is any good. We know what they were, but let's use a rival of ours that is completely down bad, the sorry ass Florida Gators, as a reference point to what I want to say. Even when they played the Long Island Ice Teas, go back to they won that game 55-0, by the way. I think it was 55-0, something like that. Go back. Listen to even Gator fans after that game. I want you to listen to even the Gator fans. I want you to listen to what they were saying about the offense after that game, that it did not look good. O-line didn't quite look sharp. Nothing looked sharp. DJ Lagway didn't look great. But it was the first game of the season. It was the Long Island Iced Teas. That's okay. Well, that hasn't been okay for them. As a matter of fact, you talk about putrid offense. DJ Lagway looks like another DJ. Florida's offense looks like another offense we saw last year. Crazy how the tides have turned. And their schedule gets no easier. As their next team, I believe they have a bye week this week, and then they have the Texas Longhorns. The point I'm making is, regardless of the opponent, FSU's offense has been legitimate. It has been clean. It has been executed to, perfection might not be the word. I'm sure if you ask anybody on that staff, they'll say it hasn't been to perfection. But they're executing that's the major takeaway, in my opinion, that even when you play terrible teams, you dominate them thoroughly. You don't leave a question, or you don't leave an avenue of, well, you didn't do this and you didn't do that and you should have did this and you should have did that. Florida State had 35 points in the first quarter. I believe 500 yards rushing, over 700, almost 800 yards of total offense against Kent State. That is the antithesis of doing what you want to do when you want to do it. Imagine a game in which they played the starters all 4 quarters. Obviously, that wasn't going to happen. But just imagine that. You thought we could have put up, 100 against East Texas. Hell, we could have did the same thing against Kent State. And so the whole point is, I don't have much worry about the offense. It's all predicated on the run game, but we knew that coming into the season. TC hasn't really been challenged. He threw that pick against Kent State. Frankly, when you go back and watch it, I don't want to make the short jokes. I just don't believe TC saw the guy behind the O-lineman, to be frank. I don't think he could see over the O-lineman, and he just didn't see the defender there. And the defender just jumped up and got the interception. Good play by the defender, but that's a situation I just don't believe TC saw the guy. So when it comes to Virginia, and I believe every defensive coordinator should take this approach. How do you affect Thomas Castellanos? Right, that's where it starts, I think, and stops. If you give him that big play action, you see him came into the season, and we talked about how poorly he was as a downfield thrower, according to the statistics. Not something we just made up. It was just according to the statistics. Thomas Castellanos was not an accurate downfield thrower. He's been pretty good. You can argue that on one of those Mekhi Danzy catches, if that ball is thrown ahead of him, Mekhi probably could catch it and go in stride and score. But regardless, he's been pretty accurate. He has surprised me thus far this season. But again, that's where the buck starts and stops, in my opinion. And if you're a defense, you got to try to find a way to contain him. Make his passing lanes hard. Clog his passing lanes. Make it hard for him to read them, hard for him to see them. And hope you can contain the run. And quite frankly, that is going to be the major problem for, I think, most of the teams we play. Can you contain the run? Because you cannot key in on any individual player. That has also been the beautiful part of FSU's offense, in my opinion, this year. It's not one guy. It's not Thomas Castellanos running for a bunch of yards, scrambling, just making – no, everything's been by design. Everything's been as planned, as executed, as planned. It don't matter if it's Gavin Sawchuk, running back one. It don't matter if it's Mekhi Danzy. By the way, let's talk about Mekhi Danzy for a little bit before we continue. Mekhi Danzy is flirting with maybe being the best. I don't want to go. I don't know if I want to go as far as to say he's the best player on the team right now, but probably has the biggest upside on the entire team and may very well be the most talented player on the team. What Makai Danzy can do has been astounding. Everything from obviously that reverse. Remember, he was recruited as a running back who they moved to receiver. I'm not so sure he couldn't have played that, though I think they made the right move by using him as this all-around weapon, right? They're using him in a manner in which, me personally, like I believe that Lucas would get a lot of these looks, but Danzy has been the better player. I believe Danzy has the highest upside on this team. He may be the best player on the team. That might be a little early to say, but I don't think it's a stretch. A guy that can run that effortlessly, also showing that he has the hands, that he's not a guy that goes down on first contact, right? If you'd told me before the season that this is what you were getting out of Makai Danzy for the first 3 games, I would have not believed you. But they have featured him. They have featured him to a point where now some of the stuff you're running with him can be a lot of smoke and mirrors to get other guys involved. We really haven't even seen Squirrel White released yet, right? Had a big catch against Bama, but he didn't play in the Kent State game, I believe, due to some injury thing. You really haven't even seen them pair like a Squirrel White and Danzy together for that speed. Deuce exploded. The Deuce was loose against East Texas A&M. You didn't need him against Kent State because Danzy burst onto the scene. The weapons on this team have been fascinating to watch. A lot of guys are playing above expectations. That's one of the major key points that I had before the season. I mean, remember, I wasn't extremely high on this team before the season, and I'm not afraid to say that. But what did I say? I said if FSU is going to beat expectations and be a better team than we anticipate, well, guys that we're not anticipating have to be better. Guys have to burst onto the scene. I don't think anybody saw this out of Makai Danzy this early in the season. That's just, you can try to spin that however you want to spin it. There's always individuals that be like, no, I told you all about Danzy. Yeah, whatever. Nobody anticipated this, get what you're getting out of Danzy this early. Danzy, again, in my opinion, be the best player on this football team. And if he's not the best player, he's the best talent and will be the best player by the end of the season. You can write that down and mark it down. He's not just a one-trick pony. He's not just a track guy. He's he's a football player. He's a football player. It's not something we anticipated getting out of him. And that's one of the reasons why this offense is going to be so explosive going forward. Because now teams have to account for him. Well, it's going to be hard to account for him and 6'6" Deuce Robinson and another speedy guy in Squirrel White. So you put your fastest guy on Danzy or you put him on Squirrel White. Good luck. Pick your poison, because whoever you don't put your fastest guy on probably is getting the ball. If you got a couple 4-2 guys, then you're one of the rare teams in college football that got a couple 4-2 guys in their secondary. Ain't even really seen the tight ends used yet because Randy Pittman's been out. But we saw what he did against Alabama. They've just been keeping him out for precautions, I'm sure. He will play against Virginia. We can go really down the list of offensive weapons. FSU's major weakness is still fielding punts. I haven't got to the defense yet. But if you want to talk about something that needs to be addressed, that's what it is. It's special teams fielding. We, for whatever reason, we still can't field punts. And now I'm on the verge of saying, put Danzy back there. Again, the best player on the team. I say let him field punts. Let him get that speed out there. You're talking about a guy, it's not above, I don't know if he gets that this year, but you're talking about next year and the year after that, you might be looking at a guy that, frankly, is a 2,000-plus all-purpose. You're talking about a legit Heisman candidate in Michael. You're talking about people. Look, bro, I don't give this comparison out lightly, and they don't play the same style of football. But as far as usage and the type of statistics this guy might be able to put up, you're legit talking about the next P-dub at FSU and Danzy. Yeah, I'm going to say it here now. If you want to get in the comments and tell me I'm tripping, by all means, go ahead. That's my GOAT. And I'm telling you, I don't know why they don't put him at a punt return. Let him field punts, wide receiver, running back. You're talking about legit all-purpose 2,000-yard guy. That's what you got in Danzy. That's what you got. The offense has a lot of weapons that have been very good. And you can argue they still got more weapons to come. LaWayne McCoy still has to get into his groove, right? LaWayne McCoy still has to, he's been injured, played last week, but he still got to get into his groove. It's another wide receiver. Javon Boggs. He's had some big catches. They're going to continue to get him into his groove. A lot of weapons there. We only talked about Sawchuk and Lucas. Really ain't talked about Chroma. Chroma barely played against Kent State, which I don't even think was a bad thing. You don't need to see Chroma, and you don't need them taking unnecessary hits. Singleton is getting a lot more burn this year. I don't know what that sound is, by the way. I don't know if you guys keep hearing this howling sound. I don't know what that is. Plethora of weapons. Maybe Cam Davis has turned the corner. I know people think I hate on Cam Davis. I'm just not taking what I saw at Kent State as a way of saying that Cam Davis is back or he's arrived. But Cam Davis has some solid plays against Kent State, right? So at a minimum, at least guys like Cam Davis and Singleton are getting confidence and they're getting experience. So if their number is called, we didn't even see Keziah Holmes last week. A guy that the first couple games they put in, it's a ghost. But yeah, you notice I spent so much time on the offense. I mean, you don't put up 800 yards by accident. So I got to give the offense a lot of credit. And I'll say this about the offense as well. Again, understanding the level of competition. So I'm not here to tell you that this guy is going to be the next FSU great. But I have been impressed with the poise of Kevin Sperry. Still not a guy that I want to see in meaningful games. And it's easy to come into a situation where you're up 45 points against outgunned opponents and look poised. But to that point, what I will say is, and to be fair, we didn't get to see him in these opportunities, but do we believe that Luke Kromenhoek would have looked like Kevin Sperry? Shut up. Like a skinwalker out there or something. I don't know. But he can go away. I'm not scared of him. Do we think Luke Kromenhoek would have looked the same as Sperry? Howling. I don't know what that is. Maybe it's a coyote. Maybe someone's dog just being stupid. But do we think that? Because I don't. And granted, to be fair to Luke Kromenhoek, he didn't even get an opportunity because by the time FSU was bringing him into games, we were desperate for anything. A lot of times he was coming into games where we were behind trying to, where Sperry has the opportunity, but that's how you build a quarterback. Sperry has the opportunity to take over games where he's comfortable. It might be a chupacabra, but he has an opportunity to take over games when he's comfortable. Right? Might have an opportunity. He has an opportunity to get in these games and just get the speed of college football without worrying about messing up. Because even if he messes up, you're up by a gazillion points. It doesn't really matter. So I've been impressed with the way that Sperry has looked. I really have. Man, he can stay out there and do what he's doing. As long as he don't come out on my porch, we good. Just stay out there and holler to the moon. I don't even think the moon's out. I don't know what's going on out here. But I've been talking a lot because I feel like I've had a lot of man bear pig. I like that one. Let me get to some comments, see what your thoughts on some of the things I'm saying, specifically my Danzy comments. What do you guys think about me saying that Danzy is the next Peter Ward? Get in the comments and let me know. Let me scroll up here and look at some comments. We'll start. Shut up, you mutt. Start with Ben. If I can get the show. There we go. It says, I know Danzy ain't as explosive as some of the little guys, but dude has proven he can really do it all. If he can catch like that, we might have a real dog. I guess when you say explosive, I guess you just mean like he doesn't. What I love about Danzy is it's real. It's real. This ain't a knock on Jaden Lucas, because Lucas is fast, but he's also small, he's short. So Lucas is one of those guys he's fast, but he looks like he's running fast because his legs are moving at 1,000 miles a minute. What I love about Danzy is it's real. He don't got to look like he's moving fast, but just watch the tape. Nobody can touch him. That's what I love about Danzy. He's an easy strider. We have not seen Danzy, I don't believe, hit second gear yet. We haven't seen him really push the speed yet, and because he doesn't have to, he might not have to. Again, we're talking about a legit track guy. Olympic level they were talking about Olympics for this kid. That's what you got in Danzy. I love it. Briley says Tommy's downfield accuracy hasn't just been a spectacular personal improvement from previous seasons. It's been downright elite in comparison to the rest of the NCAA. And it's a good. I kind of want to come back to this because I haven't got to the defense yet, but I'll talk about it and then we'll come back to it. But he says Danzy's that dude on the offense. If Amari puts it together at the edge, his upside is massive. And we're going to talk about the defense. I know what Amari was promised. I know he wants to play both sides. If I'm just being blunt and honest, I believe they're wasting time with him at tight end. First of all, you have enough of them. Now, I know Lofton got hurt. But Landon Thomas should be featured more. And again, they haven't even really had to go into the tight end depth. I just think you're wasting time. And then when you look at our pass rush, again, I'll hit on this when we circle back to the defense. Amari Williams could be used there, frankly. Martin says you can't help on Danzy, Robinson and White at the same time. Someone is so low, and that's not even taking into account Pittman as a pressure release valve. The pass game is unexpectedly dangerous. I hear that. I agree with you, Briley. I already told you, Project Dynasty. I already answered that question for you. I didn't see the comment, but I just answered it for you. Again, not in terms of his style. P-Dub was the best dead leg we've ever seen. P-Dub would, he'd shake you out of your boots and all that. Danzy's not really doing that. He's just running straight past folks. But if we're simply talking about the usage, being able to be used anywhere on a football field, that's the guy. Gus seems to be seeing who he can trust with the big games coming around. Bama seemed to have a mixed, but East Texas was Deuce, Kent was Danzy, Lewayne was playing physical. We do need Pittman back. I think we need Pittman back I agree we need Pittman back. We'll see. Nah, they ain't my kids making that noise. Boy, I don't know what's going on out here. And it's still going. I think that's a dog. I think someone's dog is back here, man. He's just making noise. Danzy is the most special player I've seen in a while. I would say Tamara Terry was a special athlete. Just was terrible teams. Danzy gives off Preston Parker vibes. Preston Parker is a similar comparison. Preston Parker wasn't as near as fast as Danzy, but I can hear you on the Preston Parker thing in terms of usage. Danzy is Lonnie Pryor. I think that's a terrible comparison, PCB. Can't really rock. You would have to explain that one. Danzy is Lonnie Pryor. It's a terrible comparison. You're comparing Danzy to a fullback. What? Let's talk about some defense. Let's see y'all talking about James. I definitely want to hit up on the defense. Appreciate you, KCS. Glad you're back. I think Gus is keeping using Danzy in the run game against better teams. So probably be more receiver against UVA. I appreciate the the $9.99. Sorry, I don't even know where I saw the 8 at. Appreciate that dono, man. Again, appreciate their support.
Clickety clank, the money goes into my piggy bank.
Defense. I spend a lot of time on the offense, and deservedly so. I can spend just as much time on the defense. Here is where a little bit of criticism comes in. James Williams. I think he is a solid football player. However, we need a more dynamic pass rush. I'm concerned about our pass rush against more stiff offensive lines. Now, to that point, they played well against Bama. We'll see what Bama does against Georgia this weekend. But Proctor didn't play well that game. So if the hope is that you just get an O-line that doesn't play well that game, then it's okay. But I need a guy who's going to play well versus good and bad competition. I'm not a fan of our pass rush. I'm really not. And this is where I come in and say, I don't understand. We're wasting Amari Williams, in my opinion. And I was very big on Amari Williams. And I love the Desir twins, but they're not prototype pass rushers is my problem. No problem. No pun intended. I love the Desir twins. Good players. They are not they're not speed rushers. We got to get guys that are explosive off the edge. I don't believe I think we have a guy, but we're using him at tight end, and we're not using him, I think, where he's really needed. And I really want someone to get into his ear and say, man, you can make a lot of money and be a high draft pick. First of all, when's the last time a tight end went top 10? Buddy from Florida a few years back, and y'all see how that's played out. One of the stupidest picks the Falcons could have ever made. But edge rushers are always at a premium and will always go in the first round. Top 10, top 5, number 1 overall picks. I need someone to get into his ear and say, bro, focus on this side of the football because you have a chance to be special, and we need you. I really believe that. My biggest problem with FSU's defense is really the pass rush. We do a good job at containing, in my opinion. One thing that James Williams, I think, does very well is I think he's a good football player. Contains the run. He's long. He's just not explosive. And I don't know if that's because he's just not explosive. Maybe he's shouldn't be learning the defense because he played in it last year. So I don't think it's a lack of confidence or a lack of learning. I think last year at Nebraska, you saw him as a situational guy that was able to get your damn dog. You saw him as a situational pass rusher who was able to exploit that, right, and be good in situations. Very much how we should be using Amari now. But as an every down D lineman, like he's being counted on, right? I think it's been a little lackluster. Just my opinion. Again, doesn't mean he's a bad player. I think in totality, the defensive line plays fairly well in totality, in my opinion. But we got to get more, especially, and we're going to look ahead here a little bit. You talk about that Miami game. I call Miami's O-line the Great Wall of China, especially against that Great Wall. I don't think Carson Beck is that good. I'm going to be honest with you. I really don't. I don't think Carson Beck is anything special. I've never thought that even when he was at Georgia. So getting him at Miami doesn't change my opinion of him. But any quarterback can be good when he has 8 seconds to throw the football. And that Miami O-line is amazing. You can't knock it. You can't deny it. We can hate orange and green all we want. You got to give kudos to that offensive line because it's the real deal. And if Beck is having all day to throw the ball, that's going to be a problem. We got to get some pass rushers. And even getting a guy like Kevin Wynn back doesn't fix the pass rush problem. Doesn't really fix that. So you got to just get some pressure on the edge. I don't know. In my opinion, Amari's the only answer now. Is there another answer out there? I don't see it. Right? I don't see it. Linebacker depth. And it's gonna sound like I'm kind of down on the defense, and I'm really not. But the offense is so elite, and I believe the defense is very good. But when I look at the linebackers, I like them. I am worried about depth. I'm a little worried about the depth. We are playing Elijah Herring, Stephen Thompson, Blake Nicholson, Omar Graham, a lot of snaps, Juice Cryer. That sounds good on paper. Seems like a lot. But if you're paying attention, they are rotating these guys a lot. So maybe that's to keep them fresh because they know that the depth isn't that great, which I understand in that aspect. But you kind of want to keep like certain guys out there. I think our front seven is fairly good. We do use the linebackers to rush the passer as well. That's kind of how they've been able to offset just the straight D-line pressure. That jack position, which is that hybrid linebacker defensive line, which has actually just been all linebackers. That jack position has been completely linebackers so far this season. Interested to see if that continues or how we try to mitigate. Again, that pass rush to me is a concern against better football teams, in my opinion. But the defense has played fairly good. I don't think they were dialed in against Kent State. I think the defense kind of took a game off, especially early, and then you can't really gauge later on because you're playing Donnie and AJ, right? You're playing the backups, so you can't really gauge the second half of that game. I thought the defense was kind of just going through the motions because they just knew they were better. I don't think they can do that against Virginia. I don't expect them to do that against Virginia. The secondary. Let's move to the secondary. I tweeted this. Get their damn dog. I tweeted this. I think I've seen enough of 16. Give me Charles Lester. Give me someone else. 16 isn't doing it for me. I'm not liking what I'm seeing. I had bigger hopes. Give me Kai Bates. I don't know. Give me someone else out there. But I've seen enough of 16 at this point. I love what I'm seeing out of Rawls. I think all the offseason hype with Rawls was legit. I like what I'm seeing out of Rawls. I think Rawls is a dog. But I've just seen enough of 16 at this point. And 16 doesn't start, but he plays a lot. Because, your starters are Wilson and Rawls. And I like that. I like that combo. I think Rawls has been the best corner so far this season. No knock on Wilson. I just think Rawls has been better, more physical. But 16 just doesn't do it for him. So I need to see Bates. I need to see Lester. I need to see some Arnold, whoever. I need to see some of these younger guys. The good news about 16 is he's not the starter. But again, he plays a lot of football. They rotate him a lot. I think they like his size and his length. But he's I don't think he's adjusted to zone play well. Outside of that, I don't have a problem with secondary. I think KJ had again, he just was out there in La La Land on that busted play. But Kirkland has been very solid for you. That safety combination with Kirkland and Barker has been effective. And I think, of course, Earl Little, right? If we had to pin one player as the best player on the defense, it'd be Earl. It'd be Earl, a guy who does not care about his body, apparently, and crashes into everything at 1,000 miles an hour. Zero has been playing phenomenal football so far this year, and I expect that to continue. So ultimately, I am interested in the Virginia offense versus the FSU defense matchup. I'm not so sure their defense can stop us unless we just come out there lackadaisical, overconfident. That's the one thing I'll say about this Florida State football team. I know how they've looked in the first 3 weeks. I understand FSU fans are excited. Hell, I'm excited. But I don't believe we are good enough to just roll out on the field every day, or every Saturday or whatever. Like we just are going to win. I don't think they're there yet. That chip you had on the shoulder at Bama, they need to keep that chip. They need to keep that mentality, whatever that was. Keep it. Now let's go to some more comments before we move on. I left off with the super chat, so I'll start there because I think I have another one. I do. I have a $2 super chat from my man Steel Supreme. Appreciate that love, man.
More money, more money.
Ben says, I feel James is pretty good with the pass. He has high pressure rates. He just doesn't get home. But his contain was the problem. Pretty good with his pass rate. Broward County says James isn't explosive. He gets pressure, but seems stiff and doesn't finish once he's getting in the backfield. What's up, Peter Shields? Noel says Williams' problem isn't getting there. His problem is finishing plays. He's not violent enough. What's up, Kenny? Ben's back at it. He says, yeah, I feel like Williams' problem is the violence, like Noel Sage said. He gets in the backfield a lot. He's got to get up and go. Just can't finish a tackle. Yes, if Florida had any offense, they could have won that game. Lagway sucks, which I didn't think I'd be saying, but Lagway is terrible. He is terrible. I don't know what's going on. Billy Napier should be fired alone for what he's done to DJ Lagway. That is crazy. But yeah, if they had any type of offense, they've been in a position to win that game. Q Jones worries me in the secondary. He just isn't it. Q got to start getting his head around. Y'all are right about Q. He can't cover, but he can tackle. Antoine, I'm with you on that. Antoine says, I admit I slept on Rawls. He's been his average. He's been good. Rawls has been good. He's been physical. He comes up and he tackles. Rawls has been good. I agree with you. What's up, Mr. H? Earl plays a way that I agree with this. He plays a way that it's like, I see a concussion coming. I see a concussion coming, man. I hate to say it, will knock, but he plays such a way that it's almost inevitable that he is going to miss a game or two from concussion protocol. Almost inevitable. What's up, FSU, Tony? Tyler, that Bama win already doesn't mean anything to anybody other than FSU fans. The narrative's already started. Like we hadn't played anyone. Bama is a different team now. We'll see. I don't know. I mean, we know how college football and the game that is college football is covered nowadays. It's all narrative driven. No one cares about facts. As a matter of fact, no one cares about wins and losses. Well, no one cares about wins anymore. They care about losing pretty. If you lose pretty, that seems to mean more than actually winning football games. That's just the nature of the game now, for whatever reason. It's crooked. But I think it says a lot if Bama beats Georgia. I don't know how you can't. And they'll find a way, to your point, Tyler. But if Bama beats Georgia, in between the hedges, I don't know how you try to diminish that FSU win. I don't think it's possible. I won't go that far, Noel 850, because Williams plays hard. We saw that team last year. A lot of the guys we were counting on just didn't play hard. Shout out to Niners Command. He's became a member of the 863 Tribe. Appreciate that. Project Dynasty says, you know we've turned the ball over every game this year. We had the muff punt against Bama, which really wasn't a muff punt. Actually, when you go back and watch it, it hit the Bama player, so it should have been a dead ball. But it was what it was, turnover. What turnover did we have against East Texas A&M from the starters? TC didn't throw a pick. We didn't have a fumble, did we? Now, I won't take that for the second. If the backups had I can't remember if the backups had a turnover against East Texas. Maybe they did. But the guys that matter, I don't believe had a turnover in that game. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't quite remember. And then that was 2 weeks ago. And then this last game, yeah, I think that was the case of TC just didn't see the guy. Because he couldn't see the guy, because the guy was behind he was in front of or behind, however you want to look at it. He was TC is 5'8", he just couldn't see him. So he got no air on the ball. And the D lineman or linebacker, whoever that was just able to jump up and catch the ball. So no, I'm not. To your point, I'm not. To answer your question, I'm not concerned about turnovers because I don't believe the turnovers have been egregious mistakes. So no, I'm not concerned about turnovers as of yet. Okay, yeah. So a Sperry fumble when the game was 77 to whatever it was, and at the time he fumbled, it was probably like 60-something to 0. I'm not worried about the Sperry fumble. So yeah, that turnover, fourth quarter fumble. Yeah, that doesn't concern me. It doesn't concern me. Tyler says, I think if FSU comes out like they did for Bama game, they're going to pull the starters by the end. Will you play a clean game? Not a lot of penalties. FSU has played clean so far this year. FSU's played pretty clean football. Not a lot of pre-snap guys. Herb Hand makes a ton of difference. Have we seen a false start this year yet? Anybody got an answer? Have we seen a fall? I don't think we've seen a false start this year. Or no, I think we did have an offensive line penalty against the center. I think we had something like that. I think maybe one penalty if I'm remembering that. But FSU's played fairly clean. Fairly clean. We had a couple pass interferences, or I know one big pass interference against Bama, but that was on 16. Just take that for what it's worth. But for the most part, I think FSU's played clean. It wasn't Sperry, it was Grant. Okay. Regardless, I don't care if it was Sperry or not, or if it was Grant. It was the backups in a backup situation. It's not a turnover that I'm like, oh my God, you can't do that, right? In the TC's credit, he hasn't had any of those moments. Like, again, even the pick that he had, you go, oh, okay. You just couldn't see the guy. But it wasn't one of those rolling right, throwing left back across his body type of bullshit plays that you're like, bro, you can't do that. So even to that, just not worried about turnovers at this point. 3 false starts, including special teams. Okay. Well, 3 false starts in 3 games. We'll take it. I'll take it. It's not bad compared to what I think Bama had 3 false starts on like 1 drive in the first game. So like, relatively speaking, again, I think FSU's played clean football so far this year. You got to keep that up against Virginia for sure. This is going to be FSU's first road game, a Friday night. Virginia fans probably going to show out for that night. So you got to continue to play clean football, 100%. How's Virginia? Can they beat? They can beat Florida. So if we talk a little bit about this game. Virginia can win in a shootout, I think. And that only matters if FSU's defense doesn't show up to play. But that's the only chance I give them. Because I think the offense is going to do what the offense does. Until I see it not do what it does, I think Gus has the offense humming, and they're playing with supreme levels of confidence at this point. The only reason I bring up the defense, because again, I don't believe they looked focused in the first part of the Kent State game. I don't think that'd be an issue. On paper, I don't believe Virginia should compete. Now, again, we'll see. This is going to be FSU's first big test since Bama. On the road. These kids have been, especially these young guys, they're used to playing in dope. And they're comfortable in dope. Well, now it's time to get uncomfortable on the road and still perform. So we're going to see how that plays out. Antoine says Edwin had the one. Yeah, he had, yes. But I agree. It was a good play because it saved a touchdown. I agree with that. But I think Q had a pass interference that game as well. Do you think that the points are kind of low for the game? 6.5, 7.5? Again, on paper, I would say, yeah, that seems kind of low. But, again, I don't think this is a Florida State team that just rolls out of bed any given day of the week and can just expect to win a football game. I don't think they're there yet. Because wins against East Texas A&M and Kent State don't mean much other than working on what you need to work on and putting certain things on film that other teams have to game plan for. Like, one of the still major things of this offense is I don't even think Gus has gotten in his bag yet because he hasn't had to. So the things that Gus is showing and he's putting on film, by all means, game plan for it. because I'm guaranteeing you there's an answer for it. I'm guaranteeing it. But again, to the point or the question, Jeff, here. Again, I think that this isn't a team that can just roll out of bed and win. You still have to prove it every Saturday or Friday in this case. So yeah, I think the over under is a little low, but I'm not worried about it. I'm not worried about it. Ask Clemson. Ask Clemson. That this has been a kind of weird college football season so far. When you look at some of these teams that were hyped and they're just really not that good. Some of this stuff with the portal is making college football a little harder to predict year in and year out. Now, the main teams usually are going to stay the main teams, but some of this stuff is getting a little hard to predict. KCS, my man, with the $9.99 says college football so far. FSU has Bama fans losing their minds. UF and Clemson are dumpster fires. Arch ain't it. FSU Miami will be a legitimate match up for the first time in 24 years. That's what it's shaping up to be. As long as you take care of business against Virginia, FSU Miami's looking like a game, a real game. Appreciate that, KCS. Speaking of FSU Miami.
Bitch, be humble. Sit down. Be humble. Sit down.
Yeah, I think any team seems to be able. I would agree. I'm not sure there's an elite team out there. Now, we'll see as the season continues to go. Indiana looks pretty good. I mean, Georgia's looking kind of – my problem with Georgia, their defense doesn't look like a Georgia defense. I mean, it kind of got exposed in the Tennessee game, but that, Tennessee still finds a way to lose because they're Tennessee. But I would agree – I don't know if there's an elite football team out there that you can point to and go, that's the team that everybody's got to, I'm not so sure that's it. I'm just not so sure there's a team out there like that. This won't be close past the first half. UVA runs offense that's from the Gus tree. UVA hasn't played a defense ranked better than 80th. UVA will sneak some points, but we will stop them more than they stop us. Danzy is Percy Harvin 2.0. Good comparison to me. Word is Virginia's bringing out the 9. Good for them. Good for them. Make the game feel important, I think. If you're Virginia, I think that's what you got to do. Again, I go back to it. That's the ACC rival, Virginia. Make the game feel a little bit important if you can. Tyler says, I do think our defense is going to have a lot of familiarity with the UVA offense just because it's similar to our own and ours is better. That could play into it. Again, I think the over-under is short, but I'm not ready to crown us just yet. I need some more proof. That's okay. Kenny says, I'm telling you, they better not be looking past Virginia for that Miami game, or it's going to be a long night. I believe it or not, I have faith that the staff will have them ready to play. I got faith that the staff will have them ready to go. Hit my like button, guys. 92 people in the chat. Hit my like button, please. If you don't mind. Share the video, please. If you don't mind, I'd appreciate it. I haven't checked how many likes I got. It's not even really that important. But if you could do me a favor, by all means, if you're here, why not just hit the like button for your boy? Again, Would appreciate it. Would appreciate you. KCS, I disagree. I think people looking at FSU as a major problem. UGA looking good, Miami looks to be legit, and OSU looks the part. Again, UGA, they haven't played anybody other than Tennessee, and you saw how that game started. Again, I didn't think UGA's defense looked very good. Just me. I think UGA can be got. Miami looks pretty good. Miami is good where it counts, and that's along the lines of scrimmages, both lines of scrimmages. So that's where you have to give Miami its credit. I still don't believe their secondary has been challenged. Talking about Miami, and I feel like there's holes there, and I don't believe Carson Beck has been challenged because he hasn't had to be. Miami literally can run it at will when they want to. And they're not getting explosive runs. They don't need it. Miami can run the ball 5 yards a pop. That's all they need. But again, Miami's good where it counts, and I will agree with that. As far as OSU, that's another team. They play Texas in an ugly game, a boring game, where Arch Manning played like ass. So I think OSU's defense is for real. I'm not so sure, but I don't believe there's an elite team out there. I just don't. I think you could look at any team in the country and poke holes. Like I just poke holes in Miami, and I think Miami might have the most. Again, they are good where it counts. UGA's defense does not look like a typical Kirby Smart defense. At least it didn't against Tennessee. We'll see what they look like against Bama. Florida State, even if you want to bring up Florida State, looked great against Bama. Has played almost literally 2 high school teams since. So how do you really gauge the Noles at this point? Well, we're going to see against Virginia. I think you can poke holes in anybody's resume, and it's still early in the season, folks. So just because you're poking holes doesn't mean that's a bad thing per se. It doesn't mean that it's all written in stone. I just think with 3 to 4 games in the season for most teams, you can poke holes in everybody's resume. What does a blowout win or a loss? Well, I'll go with the win. A blowout win for Florida State means that you maybe have answered some of those questions that we just posed, and that Florida State might legit be a top 5, top 3 team in the country if you blow Virginia out. Because you really dominated Bama. Like you really did. Outside of the first drive, you led the game for the whole way. Like you really went out there and out-physicaled and did everything that Bama has done for the past 15 years to everybody, right? You went out there and you did that. So to do that against another, in your first in-conference game on the road, to me it would show, okay, it's not a team that just gets up for the big game. This is a team that's going to put their, foot on the neck of everybody they play. A loss means that this team is kind of it's not there. A loss means that they're a good team, probably, but they still got holes and they still got things to fix. A loss sucks. I don't think it's indicative of the remainder of the season, but it does mean like, hey, and then it depends on how you lose, right? Does TC go out there and throw 3 picks against, we don't know. I'm not saying he will. I'm just saying, how does that loss look? Do you lose on some fluky stuff? A last-second field goal wouldn't feel good, but at least maybe you can point to that and go, oh, it all depends on how the loss looks. A blowout loss, and oof, that's a bad look. Oh, 1 second here. All right. No says, look past my ass. FSU fans have been on a bye week for 3 weeks. I promise they haven't been using all those time scouting Texas. I agree with that. No Sage. I think you hit the nail on the head there. I don't believe they game plan much for these last two opponents, to be frank. I don't think Tony White, regardless of what you think of Mike Norvell, and I have not been the biggest Mike Norvell fan. Gus Malzahn and these guys, they haven't been doing all these things for those two games. They've been setting it up for the games that matter. I agree with that. And I agree. I think they'll be ready too, actually. I don't look at it as a sleeper game personally, unless they're just drinking their own Kool-Aid, which then can always be a problem if you start believing the hype. But I think this staff has them, will have them focused. I do. I don't see why they would look forward to Miami. You guys don't think they're already scheming up stuff for Miami during the bye? And honestly, they weren't worried about the last two opponents. So basically, you just said what Noel Sage said, Antoine, and I agree with that. What's up, Brandon? Miami's defense hasn't been ran like they will against us. Notre Dame is not that good, and they beat USF and UF. Miami isn't as good as everyone makes them out to be. Maybe. My thing is when you watch teams, and it's the same thing I said about Florida State, so I'm not going to be a hypocrite. When you watch teams, it's not always about who they play, which we will agree that Florida's not any good. We can agree that USF might be a good group of 5 team. But that game against Miami went how I thought. I thought USF was in over their head, and I thought they would get handled, and they did. So regardless of the opponent, to me, it's about watching football. And when you watch Miami's O-line and D-line, again, they are legit. I don't really think you can dispute that unless you just want to be a hater. By all means, I'm not telling anybody to not be a Miami hater. Hate on them. Hate on them hard. I'm just being, unbiased, talking head. Miami is good where it counts. I don't believe in Carson Beck. But if you can't get pressure on him, it doesn't matter what I think about Carson Beck. You can't cover forever. There's going to be guys open, especially in the zone. There will be holes in the zone. And Beck will be able to get the ball there. So those are my concerns when you start talking about that Miami game. And obviously we are a week away from that. Next week we'll focus on Miami. But I think Miami is good where it counts. Any team that can run the ball and that can rush the passer is a team that you got to worry about. Virginia has 4 guys over 140 yards rushing. It could be, but to some of the points that are being made, Virginia's offense is very similar to ours. We practice against that offense every week, every day of the week. So you have to think that FSU will be prepared for it. Linebackers are going to have to play sound, key their assignments, right? Linebackers have to do their job. I like our run defense. Again, I question our pass rush. But I think we'll be fine. There's nothing that Virginia does that overly concerns me. We'll find out in 2 days. But as I sit here on a Wednesday of September 4th at 9:06 Mountain Time, 11 o'clock Eastern. I don't really look at it. I don't really look at Virginia and go, I'm concerned about X, Y, and Z. That's just me, though. Since the conferences got rid of East versus West championship games and the 12-team playoff, do you think the teams are trying to go all out during the regular season? It's an interesting question. College football has been diluted in a sense. There was a time where every game mattered in college football. For some teams, they still do. especially if you play in a conference that is considered weak, like the ACC. And I'm not going to defend the ACC because the ACC is trash. And if you're not watching what's going on in the rest of the ACC, it's actually pretty embarrassing. Outside of Miami and Florida State, the ACC as a whole is garbage. SMU was supposed to be one of the better ACC teams. They've lost to 2 Big 12 teams. Clemson is, again, a dumpster fire. God awful. Clemson is terrible. I don't know what happened there. You can go down the list of ACC teams. The only other good ACC team is like Georgia Tech. And they have and be worried about Georgia Tech, not because you play them, because you don't. Be worried about Georgia Tech because their schedule lines up where they've already handled their biggest game of the season in Clemson. They don't play Miami. They don't play us. Georgia Tech has a chance to breeze through this piss-poor conference. And unfortunately, the loser of Florida State Miami might not get a second shot at it, unfortunately, unless Georgia Tech slips up along the way. So that is a worry, in my opinion. I don't want to go so far as to say that teams can take it easy, though, during the regular season. But I will say, if you're an SEC team, if you're a team that's in a conference, Big Ten, SEC, that gets the benefit of the doubt, then yeah, you can afford. Like Bama can, even with losing to Florida State, Bama can afford to lose to Georgia because that's only going to be their first conference loss. Granted, they have to take care of the rest of the schedule. But a 10-2 Bama gets in, especially if they make the SEC championship. They're not going to keep them out. We know this. We know this firsthand, Florida State fans. I don't want to bring up old memories and trauma and PTSD. But we know, right? We know Bama's going to get the nod, even if they lose another game. Whereas I don't know if a 10-2 ACC team gets in. I really don't. Even if it's Florida State with the win against Bama. What if you lose to Miami or lose to Clemson? You lose one of those two games if you're Florida State, right? You lose one of those two and finish the season 11-1, but don't make the conference championship game because of Georgia Tech. So Georgia Tech's going to play Miami or whoever. It won't be Clemson. It'll be most likely Miami in the conference championship game. You think an FSU team with only one loss but no conference title appearance gets a nod? We've been down that road. I have no faith that an 11-1 FSU team gets in. So to that point, and I spent a lot of time on your comment, but I think it was a decent question. To that point, I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure because they're going to go, especially if the loss, if it's to Miami and Miami goes on to win the conference, then I think you would get a lot of consideration. God forbid you don't lose to Miami, you don't lose to Clemson, and you drop the NC State game or the Virginia, right? You drop a game that you have no business dropping. Oh, I think they will shit all over us. I really believe that. And maybe I'm just a scarred, ruined individual, but I have no faith. But that was a good question. Galaxy King says, watch the games, man. It's no one watching the games will say Miami ain't tough. Do we got holes? Yes, but every team. Yes, I agree with you, Galaxy. I agree with you. I agree with No Sage. What's up, Almighty? Florida got pressure on Beck a few times with 3 starters out. Miami isn't that deep on their D-line behind the starters. They haven't played against any teams that run tempo. Even though Florida sucks, their defense is playing top 15 level, top 20 level defense. Like, it's unfortunate. It's not unfortunate. I love it. But if I was a Gator fan, it's like, man, my defense is playing their asses off, and my offense can't generate 30 yards in a half. That's what we dealt with, and our defense wasn't nowhere near Florida's defense this year compared to FSU. Like, our defense wasn't even that. But the offense is doing that defense no favors. Noel says, I've watched all their games. NC State twice. UVA's QB is a play extender. That's what makes them difficult. A lot of their big plays were straight up scramble drills. Contain the QB, and we win big. So we got to contain the QB. Let me ask you a question. How do we do that? Or what's the key to doing that? What players have to play well to do that? Is that a linebacker conversation? Is that the edges? Is that James Williams? Right? So there's a question on containing, because we really haven't had to play any mobile quarterbacks yet either. I think the big difference is your star running back is slightly injured and you play a top-ranked team. You may sit him, let him get healthier, and that loss doesn't look as bad. I think Galaxy King and Antoine are arguing. I'm not sure. I don't know if he's asking me if I watch ball or if they're asking each other that. So I will stay out of that argument because I don't believe that's directed towards me. It may be, but I don't think it is. But yeah, again, hit my like button, please. What else we got before I get out of here for the night? What else do we got? Y'all give me something. Give me something that you want to talk about. So I think we've covered it all, quite frankly. I'm pretty confident that we've covered all the major talking points. So I don't want to waste anyone's time, but if we got some more things that we want to hit on real quick, I'll definitely hit on. But we're reaching that hour 30 mark. And I covered most of it. And I will do a post-game Friday night. So y'all tune in for that. That's a triple shot of bourbon. It's hen dog. And you know, I just be sipping, man. I just be sipping, just be chilling. What about 20? So great question from Project Dynasty. I actually forgot about that. I actually was gonna get on here and talk about it. That is going to be an ongoing conversation. I know there is a lot of FSU fans that don't believe that that's a possibility. I have my own thoughts, and I'll break them down. On the surface, I would agree. I don't know why, if you're Tony White, you take that job, given the circumstances at UCLA right now, and the fact that they are not invested in that football program. There's just a lot of garbage stuff going on at UCLA. However, you just saw it. Virginia Tech fired their coach. Same time UCLA fired Deshaun Foster. About a week later, I think it was this past week, Virginia Tech announced that they are investing like $40 million into the football. So they've came out and they've said, we are going to invest in the football program because it matters. If Tony White got that same type of dedication from UCLA, written in a contract or something, where it's like, we are going to put X amount of dollars into the football program to turn this around, FSU fans should be worried, because there's not one of you in the chat that if you were a coach, hell, as a fan, you can relate. Most of y'all do this on your NCAA dynasties, because I know I do it. Being the guy that goes back to the alma mater to turn the program around. Tony White would be a hero. He has to get that reassurance from the athletic department, but best believe if he was to get that assurance, I 100%, 150,000% believe he would take that job, because why would you not want to be the guy that goes and turns your alma mater around from the deepest, darkest pits of hell to being a prominent program? Like, you would take that job and you would take that opportunity. So I want FSU fans to be cognizant of that. Again, if things stay the status quo, if things stay how they are, then no, I don't think Tony White takes that job, because there are going to be better jobs for him in the future. Why go into a lose-lose situation? I wouldn't do it personally. But again, if he's talking to this athletic director and the athletic director is like, look, we didn't invest like we should have. Put it like this. UCLA decides to give Tony White the Mike Norvell treatment and invest in everything. Stadium renovations and increasing his coaching staff by 10 and paying premium salaries for the coach. If they were to do that, like Mike Norvell got when he got this job, why would you not take the job if you were Tony White? You're in a prime location. You're in LA. It's not like USC is lighting the world on fire that they can lock down the state of California. That hasn't happened since Pete Carroll's been there. So if I'm Tony White, and if that's the job you really want, I got to get that investment. But I wouldn't take that job and just to go there and get dog walked. You're in a lose-lose situation. A guy that's a promising head coach shouldn't take that job. But again, if you get the reassurance, I believe as a Florida State fan, you should be worried. KCS brings up a good point. OK State. That's a better job than UCLA right now. If OK State comes calling, would you take that job if you're Tony White? You're in an easier conference. UCLA's in the Big Ten now. And they're at the bottom. Like, even if you get that reassurance at UCLA, that's still Michigan, Ohio State conference. Do you take that? I think he would if he got the reassurance. But maybe Oklahoma State is a better job. Tony White will get calls. Our hope is that he doesn't bite on one of these low-tier jobs that really doesn't have a chance to win anything, so we can keep him for another year or two. I'm just saying be prepared. If UCLA really wants him, I think UCLA can get him. I just think it's going to take them breaking open their bank accounts, giving him the resources to be competitive at UCLA. If they're not going to do that, then no, I don't think he takes the job. So, good question. That's my opinion on that. No Sage says, I don't think he takes the job. Hold on, there we go. They don't care about football. They will have to drop a heavy bag to pull him away. Still need to see how the defense turns out here. Again, I'm not 100% sure he takes the job either. But they would have not only break the bank for him, they would have to break the bank for football. They would have to do, again, what I believe Virginia Tech is doing. It's not a coincidence that Virginia Tech fired their coach and then came out a week later and said, we're investing X amount of money into the football program for the next guy because they know they got to go out and hire the next guy. UCLA hasn't made any such announcements. That doesn't mean those conversations aren't happening. He said, please go so they don't take Dawson. Yeah, UCLA is a basketball school. I hear you. But Tony played football there. I mean, it's everybody's dream to go back to their alma mater and be the hero. Like, don't sleep on people's dreams. Don't sleep on people's dreams. So just be cognizant. How do we feel about Mike Norvell replacing his coordinators, being that we were on the bad side and the good side of hires? How do I feel about replacing coordinators? I still think it was a year too late. I'll stand on that to the end of my days. He should have replaced the coordinators after the 2023 season. I stand on that. I guess you could say better late than never. But you went 2-10. And I'm not here to bring up 2-10. I'm just saying it went 2-10 for you to make those changes that you probably should have made a year before. But thank God he did it. I mean, after 2-10, we knew he had to do it. There was no question that he had to do it after 2-10. There's no way he'd still be here if he refused to do it. So, I mean, you feel great about it. And I said I liked the Gus hire when it happened, and I loved the Tony White hire when it happened. My only problem with the Gus hire, and I said it, and we'll see how it plays out, was quarterback. Gus isn't known for developing top-notch quarterbacks. Now, necessarily in this offense, he doesn't have to. But my hope is that with TC kind of playing the way he's playing, you can get Keyshawn Henderson. I'm still hoping they have not closed the book on that recruitment. Like, they need to go get that guy. I don't know. I don't know how Houston's looking this year. I haven't paid attention to any Houston Cougar games. But you should be talking to that kid every day. Oh, William, that's not like you. You usually out here waving the Norvell flag. That ain't like William. Nervous about Virginia. Why is that, William? I'm low-key disappointed in you. I think we'd break the coordinator bank to keep him, and we should if he keeps this up. Gus and Tony saved Mike, and I commend Mike for becoming the CEO. I agree with that, James. Here's the problem. Yeah, you can break the bank. How much? First of all, how much are you really banking the bank for a coordinator? I don't know who the highest paid coordinator. Somebody can look it up. I'm not looking it up. Who's the highest paid coordinator in college football? Because that's what you'd have to exceed that salary. Again, don't sleep on people's dreams. If you don't think Tony White wants to go back to his alma mater and be the hero and get a statue built in front of the Rose Bowl, then you are naive. You're sleeping. He would 100% take that opportunity. Granted, the opportunity has to line up with what he wants to accomplish, meaning they can't just be a dumpster fire and he go over there and expect to, win when all the chips are stacked against him. So UCLA has a lot of work to do on their end, but the point still remains, in my opinion, he would take that job. And I don't think there's a salary, unless you're talking about a head coach level salary, that Tony White would take to stay at Florida State if he got that buy-in from UCLA. And the thing that you also have to be cognizant of, he's probably taking Terrence Knighton with him, if you care about that sort of thing. But Antoine says if White gets the job, then the D coordinator job at Florida State is more appealing. I don't disagree with that at all. But you're also going to be probably hiring another D-line coach and probably another safety coach, because he's probably taking the guys that he put from Nebraska, probably taking him to UCLA. You can probably bank on that, right? So you're not just replacing Tony White. You're replacing half of your defensive staff. And frankly, I think they should fire JP. So you might want to replace that too. That's just me, though. Is Houston undefeated? That sucks because that kid's committed there. It's crazy. Tony's getting 1.6. Again, who's the highest paid coordinator in college football is the question. Not what Tony's getting paid. Who's the highest paid coordinator? I have to think it's upwards of $2 million. Is FSU going to pay that? Not saying they wouldn't. $2 million, $10 million. The going rate for a coach nowadays, folks, is $10 million. So go look across college football. You ain't poaching a coach for less than $10 million these days. That's just status quo at this point. Jim Knowles is making $3. Like I said, upwards of $2. So Jim Knowles is making $3. So you would have to pay him that salary. I remember when head coaches used to make that much. So yeah. Galaxy said, especially if Florida State is good, he definitely will take the credit and feel as though he can turn UCLA around after Florida State went to him. I mean, that's his alma mater. He would take that job. He would take that job in a heartbeat. And I know you're a Miami fan, so you might be wishing it, but I don't disagree with what you're saying. Also, William, UVA has 13 players ruled out. It doesn't have 13 players ruled out. And one is questionable. 17 were projected starters. Well, we talked about that, the injuries they suffered prior to the season. So that's probably what you're referring to. So, yeah. Which coordinator will be worse to lose, Gus or Tony? To me, it's Tony. Now, I like Gus. And personally, I think Gus is not going anywhere. I don't think Gus wants to be a head coach anymore. When I look at Gus, he's having a blast on that sideline. He's doing what he loves, and that's call plays. And he doesn't have to worry about all the extra shit that comes with being a head coach. So I don't believe Gus leaves. Money talks. I just don't believe Gus has that want to. We know Tony White wants to be a head coach somewhere. We know that's in his goal is to be a head coach eventually. So, but to answer that question, I think Tony would be a bigger blow because an FSU defense hasn't looked like this in 15 years. Just Jeremy Pruitt, Mark Stoops. So for me, it's all on. I think Tony White has a FSU defense looking like an FSU defense. Only if he gets fired from Baylor. He's not taking a downgrade. I don't believe Arnett. Oh, you're talking about Arnett. I thought you were talking about Aranda. Sorry, I read that wrong. So you have Arnett. He's on the staff. You probably brought him on the staff for a very similar probably a reason like this is probably why you brought him on the staff. As Mike Norvell is notorious for liking to hire within his ranks. So probably. And that's another good point from KC. Who's to say Tony don't take Arnett with him and make him his defensive coordinator? So Tony White, a lot of dominoes would fall if he was to leave. I don't know. I don't think he's happy in UCLA now. Obviously, with the way that whole thing has spiraled out of control. Do I think FSU would take him back? At this point, I don't know. Yeah, I don't think Tommy's hurt. I know he got rolled up on that in the Kent State game, but if you saw him on the sideline jumping and hollering and running around, I think Tommy's fine. POLK had a discussion with someone close to his recruitment and the money coming. I know the money's coming. I had a conversation with someone close to his recruitment as well. Not only that, I know Florida State was never seriously considered. I'm just saying that they shouldn't sleep on it. They shouldn't give up. They shouldn't give up on it. Is all I'm saying. But no, that's a pipe dream. I'm just speaking it. I understand that Henderson is a pipe dream at this point. My hope is that he's just watching TC and saying, "Oh, I can do those things." But no, I had a talk with the guy that's a part of that, and yeah, before he even canceled his visit to Florida State, he told me Florida State's not even legitimately in the conversation. And I actually think I came on here and told people that. So it is what it is. No, says I kind of agree. FSU's D is good due to a combination of scheme and players. When we had a good defense the last 15 years, it was only because of talented players. It was definitely a mix. Because Charles Kelly had talented players. Charles Kelly had a defense that had Brian Burns and Josh Sweat on it. Look at what those guys do in the NFL. I think Derwin James as well. And Charles Kelly's defenses were lackluster, to say the least. So it's definitely talent has to be there. Don't get me wrong. but you definitely want to pull the pin on these guys and let them play without thinking. And I believe that's what Tony has done at this point. What's more attractive, a DC job for Arnett, FSU or UCLA? It's not even close. Arnett doesn't have the white tie. I agree. I just, I think there's dominoes to fall. I don't disagree with that. But you don't know. You don't know. Hakeem Williams was saying they develop players better in Colorado. I bet he's loving. Well, Hakeem, you get to a new place, and those are the things that you say. Dion is he should have never benched Salter in the first place, frankly, for being honest. Should have never benched him. He didn't. First of all, the kid, I know he lost the first game of the season, but he didn't do anything to get benched. I mean, that's just poor coaching and poor mismanagement. Should have never benched Salter not after that one game. And I did not like the way Salter played in that first game. I'm not going to defend his play, but you going to bench him for who? I don't even remember the kid they benched him for. And the freshman obviously ain't ready. So that's coaching malpractice from Deion Sanders. Well, again, with Sperry, let's wait to crown him. And as far as TC goes, he's the type of quarterback that we always said, right? And I always was not a fan of TC's throwing mechanic, just when it comes to throwing the football. But what we always said about TC was he fits the system. He fits the system. So if he fits the system, he can have some success. So I don't know if they're doing a better job at evaluating quarterbacks. I think TC fits the system. And as far as Sperry goes, let's just wait and see. I think we'll see against Virginia, but through 3 weeks, we have the best offense in the country through 3 weeks. Jones is playing good at Oklahoma. Pat is still mid. Is Dugans did Deion hire Ron Dugans? That's the problem. That's the problem. But, man, that's all I got for tonight. I'm going to go ahead and get up out of here. Call it a night. Again, hit my like button if you may. Appreciate everybody who showed up and showed some love. And, Friday night, we'll be back, hopefully talking about a win. I expect us to be talking about a win. So, as always, man, it's your boy POLK over here on 863 Seminole TV. Y'all stay classy out there, Seminole fans. And we are out here. Go Noles.